Hello hippos! It's Monday, it's a rainy day, and it's 48 degrees. That is colder than our warmest day, but warmer than our coldest day. I am here at my house. Let me see if I can turn the camera around. I might not be able to turn the camera around, but what I will do is I will take some pictures of my house so that you can see where I am. Today I'm going to read a story for you called Little Toot. I'm going to try to put this all together in one video. This is all new territory for me, so hopefully we'll be able to figure it out. Okay hippos, here's my house. This is on the street where I live. What I really wanted you to see here was my friend Happy. I'm gonna walk a little closer so you can see him a little better. This is my friend Happy. I named him that because he makes me happy. He's pretty tall, he has a mushroom, and I think he's kind of awesome. Alright hippos, here's the book I was telling you about. Little Toot by Hargreaves. Look, this book was a gift to my son from his grandparents. So this book's been at my house a long time. Little Toot. There he is. That's that little cute yellow fella there is Little Toot. At the foot of an old wharf lives the cutest, silliest little tugboat you ever saw. A very handsome tugboat with a brand new candy stick smokestack. His name was Little Toot, and it came through him through no fault of his own. Blow hard as he would, the only sound that came out of his whistle was a small, gay toot, toot, toot. But what he couldn't create in sound, Little Toot made up for in smoke. From his chubby smokestack, he could send up a volley of smoke balls that bubbled over his wake like a balloon. Hence, when he got up all his steam, Little Toot used to feel very important. The flag at his masthead would dance like the tail of a happy puppy dog, or of a tail of a puppy dog when he's happy, and he flaunted his signals like a man-o'-war. Now the river where Little Toot lives is full of ships. They come from the port all over the world, bringing crews who speak strange tongues and bringing even stranger cargoes. Hides from Buenos Aires, copra from the south of seas, whale oil from the Antarctic, and fragrant teas from distant Asia. So there was always work for tugboats to do, either pushing ships into the dock to be unloaded, or else pulling them into the stream down the channel to the ocean to begin a new voyage. So a tugboat's life is a busy, exciting one, and Little Toot was properly right in the middle of it. His father, Big Toot, is the biggest, fastest tugboat in the river. Why, Big Toot can make even more smoke and kick up even more water than any two of the other boats put together. As for Grandfather Toot, he's an old sea dog who breathes smoke and tells of his mighty deeds on the river. You'd think that Little Toot, belonging to such an important family, would have his mind on work, but no, Little Toot hated work. He saw no sense in putting ships 50 times bigger than himself, all the way down, pulling them all the way down to the ocean, and he was scared of the wild seas that laid in wait outside the channel, beyond where the harbor empties into the ocean. Little Toot had no desire to be tossed. He preferred the calm waters of the river itself, where he could always find plenty of fun, like gliding, for example. Or playing thread the needle around the piers. And what was even fancier, cutting figure eights. Little Toot liked nothing better than to make a really fine figure eight. First you throw your weight to one side, then the other, and the result never failed to delight him, although his antics annoyed the hard-working tugboats awfully. Goodness, there we go, got it turned. But he kept on making figure eights that grew bigger and bigger until one day, carried away by the joy of it all, he made one so big it took up the whole river. Indeed, there was hardly room for it between the two shores. And no room at all for the big tug named J.G. McGillicuddy, who was bounding down the stream to pick up a string of coal barges from Hoboken. J.G. McGillicuddy had little love for the other tugboats anyway, and a frivolous one like Little Toot made him mad. As witness, this by itself was bad enough, but unfortunately for Little Toot, the other tugboats had seen what had happened, so they began to make fun of him, calling him a sissy, and who only knew how to play. Poor Little Toot, he was ashamed and angry, but there was nothing he could do about it except blow those silly smoke balls. But the more he blew, the more the other boats laughed at him. Little Toot couldn't understand it. He fled to his favorite hiding place along the wharf, where his taunting friends could not reach him, and there he just sat and sulked. And after he'd moped a while, Little Toot saw headed down the river a great ocean liner. And pulling it were 4 tugboats with his own father, Big Toot, right up front. The sight of the brave, bustling work made Little Toot think. He thought harder than ever in his life, and then all of a sudden, a great idea burst over him. He wouldn't be as silly as frivolous little tugboat anymore. He would work like the best of them. After all, wasn't he the son of Big Toot, the mightiest tug on the river? Well, he could make Big Toot proud of him. He'd show them all. Full of ambition, he started eagerly downstream. He sidled hopefully up to one big ship after another, tooting for them to heave a tow line. But they supposed he was only a nuisance and would have nothing to do with him. Oscar the Scandinavian rudely blew steam in his face. And the others were too busy with their own affairs to notice the bothersome little tug. They knew him too well. But the rudest of all was the great transatlantic liner that blasted him right out of the water. That was too much for Little Toot. He wasn't wanted anywhere, by anyone. With his spirits drooping, he let the tide carry him where he willed. He was so lonesome. Floating aimlessly downstream, he grew sadder and sadder until he was utterly miserable. He had sunk so deep into his own despair that he didn't even notice that the sky had grown dark and that the wind was whipping up a real storm. Suddenly he heard the sound like no other sound he'd ever heard. It was the ocean, the great ocean, that Little Toot had never seen, and the noise came from the waves that dashed and pounded against the rocks. But that wasn't all. Against the black sky climbed a brilliant, flaming rocket. When Little Toot looked hard, he saw jammed between 2 huge rocks the ocean liner which his father had towed many times up and down the river. It was truly a terrible thing to see. Little Toot went wild with excitement. He began puffing those silly balls of smoke out of his smokestack. Oh goodness, look at his face. As he did so, a wonderful thought struck him. Why, those smoke balls could probably be seen up the river where his father and grandfather were. So he puffed a signal thus: SOS, save our ships. Way up the river they saw it. Of course, they had no idea who was making the signal, but they knew it meant come quickly. So they dropped what they were doing and raced to the rescue. See? SOS, SOS. Out of the many wharves steamed a great fleet. Big boats, little boats, fat ones and skinny ones. Here they all come. With Big Toot himself right in the lead, like an admiral at the head of his fleet. With just in time too, because Little Toot, still puffing out his SOS, was hard put to stay afloat. One wave spun him around until he was dizzy, and another tossed him up so high he was glad when the spiral-shaped wave came along for him to glide down on. Before he could spit the salt water out of his smokestack, still another wave came along and tossed him up again. It looked as though he'd never get down. All this was pretty awful for a tugboat that was used to the smooth water of the river, but what was terrifying was the fact that out of the corner of his eye, when he saw was thus hung on a wave, Little Toot saw that the fleet wasn't able to make headway against the fierce seas. Even Grandfather Toot bellowed. He had never seen such a storm. Little Toot was scared green. Something had to be done, and all that Little Toot had ever learned to do was blow those silly smoke balls. Where he was, the channel looked like a narrow bottleneck with the whole ocean trying to pour in at once. That was why the fleet couldn't make any headway. The force of the sea simply swept them back. See, that's what they're saying it looked like. Here's the ocean out here, and here's the harbor they were in, and they were all trying to get through here, and the water wouldn't let them. See, they're all struggling. Indeed, they were on the verge of giving up entirely, when suddenly, above the storm, they heard a gay, familiar toot. Toot, toot. Sorry. It was Little Toot, not wasting his strength butting the waves as they had done. He bounced from crest to crest like a rubber ball. The pounding hurt like everything, but Little Toot kept right on going. And when Big Toot looked out to the ocean through his binoculars, he saw that the crew on the great vessel throw the line to Little Toot. It was a wonderful thing to see. When the line was made fast, Little Toot waited for a long moment. And then with a huge wave under the liner, lifting it clear of the rocks, he pulled them with all of his might, and the liner came free. Look at that, Little Toot to the rescue. The people on board began to cheer, and the whole tugboat fleet insisted upon Little Toot escorting the great boat back into the harbor. See, there's the line right there that he's pulling them by. There's the people all cheering. And there's all of the tugboats. Little Toot was a hero, and Grandfather Toot blasted the news all over the river. Look how happy he looks. Well, after that, Little Toot became quite a different fellow. He even changed his tune. Looks like he's getting older there, doesn't he? And it is said that he can haul as big a load as his father can. There he is, with the great big ship behind him. That is when Big Toot hasn't a very big load to haul. Oh, look, there's his dad. He's got 2 boats. Oh, sorry, trouble. The end. All right, friends, if you're interested in tugboats, I'm sure that somewhere, oh, look, there you go. There's the C, back to the beginning. If you're interested in tugboats, I'm sure you could probably find, with your mom or dad's help, some videos about tugboats. All right, we'll talk to you later. Bye.